Imagine getting career advice from hell. Not metaphorically, literally. A senior demon writing performance reviews to his nephew on how to drag souls into damnation. In the Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis, you do not get horror. You get a training manual for spiritual destruction, written in business memo format. Published in 1942 by a British theologian who understood darkness better than most, this is not fiction pretending to be truth. It is truth disguised as fiction. Lewis wrote it as 31 letters from Screwtape, a senior demon in hell's bureaucracy, to Wormwood, a junior tempter assigned to corrupt a young Christian man they call the Patient. The Patient converts to Christianity. Wormwood panics. Screwtape coaches him. But this is not about possession or screaming exorcisms. It is surgical. Screwtape tells Wormwood to distract the Patient with church politics, not theology. Make him focus on the hypocrites in the pews instead of the cross at the altar. Then comes the war, World War II, and Screwtape advises using fear, not terror, just enough anxiety to keep him from praying deeply. The Patient falls in love. Screwtape rages. Love toward another person, real sacrificial love, pulls humans toward God. So Wormwood is instructed to twist it. Make it about feelings, not commitment. Lust masquerading as romance. By the end, the Patient dies in an air raid. But he dies in grace. Wormwood fails. Screwtape promises him punishment. Because in hell, failure is not just career suicide, it is eternal torment. What makes this chilling is not violence. It is familiarity. Screwtape's tactics are your daily life. He does not tell Wormwood to make the Patient worship Satan. He tells him to make the Patient eat breakfast irritated, so his prayers feel empty. To keep him scrolling, distracted, numb. Lewis exposes witchcraft's most insidious form, the erosion of attention, the demonization of the mundane, every petty annoyance, every distraction you think is harmless. Screwtape calls strategy. This is not about demons you can see. It is about the ones you invite in without noticing. Lewis reveals that witchcraft does not need rituals when it has routine. The devil does not need your worship when he has your distraction. At its core, the Screwtape Letters exposes spiritual warfare as a war of inches. And you are losing ground every time you think you are too busy to pray. Because in Screwtape's hell, the greatest victory is not making you evil. It is making you comfortable. This Present Darkness, by Frank Peretti. What if the corruption in your town was not political? What if it was demonic? And what if the only people fighting back were a broke journalist and a desperate pastor armed with nothing but prayer? In This Present Darkness, by Frank Peretti, you see the invisible war. Angels with flaming swords clash with demons in the skies above a dying American town. Published in 1986, this Christian suspense novel sold over 2 million copies and created an entire genre, spiritual warfare fiction. Peretti, a pastor's kid who understood both theology and terror, set his story in Ashton, a small town being quietly consumed by a New Age group called the Universal Consciousness Society. Marshall Hogan, a skeptical newspaper editor, and Bernice Kruger, a fierce reporter, start digging into local corruption, bribes, disappearances, a college being taken over by a cult promoting meditation and Eastern mysticism. Meanwhile, Pastor Hank Bush notices something darker. His congregation is shrinking. Fear is spreading, and every time he prays, he feels resistance, like invisible hands pushing back. What Marshall and Bernice cannot see is the battle above them. Demons named Rayfar, Lucius, and Baal Rayfar command legions, whispering lies into ears, planting thoughts, and manipulating leaders. On the other side, angels Tal and Gilo fight back, but they are outnumbered. The only thing that strengthens them is prayer. Every time Hank or his small prayer group intercedes, the angels grow brighter, fiercer. The demons scream and scatter. The climax comes when the conspiracy is exposed, the cult collapses, and the demons are driven out. But not before lives are shattered. Spiritual warfare has casualties. Peretti does not sugarcoat demonic presence. Demons in this book are grotesque, with bat wings, yellow eyes, and breath like sulfur. They whisper suicide into a woman's mind until she nearly pulls the trigger. They plant lust, greed, and rage like seeds, then watch humans destroy themselves. The most disturbing part is that the humans never see them. Every sin feels like personal choice. Every dark thought feels like your own. This is not about monsters under the bed. It is about the monsters in the room you cannot see. Peretti exposes how meditation, yoga, and New Age spirituality, presented as peaceful and enlightened, are Trojan horses for demonic entry. The book warns that when you empty your mind, something fills it, and it is not always holy. In Ashton, the darkness was not hiding. It was wearing a smile and offering inner peace. The Beautiful Side of Evil by Johanna Michelson. She watched a psychic surgeon pull cancer out of a man's body with her bare hands. No anesthesia, no scalpel, just a prayer to the spirits. And it worked, until Johanna realized who those spirits really were. In The Beautiful Side of Evil by Johanna Michelson, miracles don't always come from God, and sometimes the most dangerous deception looks like healing. Published in 1982, this is a memoir, not fiction. Johanna was raised in a Christian home but drifted into the occult during the 1970s New Age boom. She joined a group called Mind Control, learned to meditate, and eventually became the personal assistant to Pachita, a famous psychic surgeon in Mexico. Pachita performed miracles. Johanna watched her remove tumors, straighten spines, and heal the blind. No medical instruments, just Pachita's hands and her spirit guide, a dead Aztec prince she claimed channeled through her. For 14 months, Johanna assisted in these surgeries, convinced she was serving God. But cracks appeared. Christian patients screamed in agony during operations while others felt nothing. Their healings were temporary. They came back sicker. Then Johanna had a vision. She saw the spirits Pachita called upon. They were not angels. They were demons, twisted, mocking, and furious that Johanna was beginning to see. She fled Mexico, returned to Christ, and wrote this book as a warning. She learned that Satan's greatest trick is not making you worship him. It is making you think you are worshiping God. The surgeries are visceral. Johanna describes Pachita reaching into a man's abdomen, pulling out rotting tissue, and tossing it aside. Blood, screaming, and then laughter. The entity speaking through Pachita was not compassionate, it was entertained. Johanna also exposes how occult practices infiltrate mainstream culture. Yoga, transcendental meditation, Reiki, even children's cartoons. She argues that what looks innocent is often a gateway. This is not about avoiding evil that looks evil. It is about discerning evil that looks beautiful. Michelson reveals that demons do not always show up as monsters. Sometimes they show up as healers, gurus, and enlightened masters. The book forces a question. If something works, is it automatically good? Or can darkness perform miracles too? Because Pachita's patients were healed, but their souls were enslaved. Hostage to the Devil by Malachi Martin. 5 people, 5 demons, 5 exorcisms that ended in madness, death, and one priest losing his mind. This is not a movie. It is documented testimony from the man who was there. In Hostage to the Devil by Malachi Martin, possession does not happen only to bad people. It happens to the curious. It happens to the broken. It happens to the ones who open doors they did not know existed. Published in 1976 by a former Jesuit priest, this is investigative nonfiction. Malachi Martin interviewed exorcists, possessed individuals, and witnesses to compile 5 real-life cases of demonic possession in modern America. He includes the full Roman Catholic exorcism ritual in the appendix because he wanted readers to understand this is real. Case 1, Marianne, a devout woman possessed by a demon called the Smiler. It entered through satanic rituals she witnessed as a child. The exorcism lasted days. Father Peter performed it. He succeeded. The demon left. Father Peter never recovered. He died broken. Case 2, Carl, a parapsychologist who studied the occult for science. The demon tortoise took him slowly, convincing him that possession was enlightenment. By the end, Carl begged for freedom, but he almost did not survive. Case 3 involves a man possessed through atheism, Case 4 through pride, and Case 5 through intellectualism. The pattern is clear. Demons do not need Satanism. They need cracks, pride, doubt, obsession. And once inside, they do not just control, they corrupt identity itself. The exorcists describe possessed individuals speaking ancient languages they never learned, knowing secrets they could not have known, and manifesting physical strength that defies biology. The demons taunt. They call priests by name. They mock their sins. They describe hell not as fire, but as eternal separation from meaning. One demon laughs and says, "We have more of you than you think." The physical torment is brutal. Possessed individuals vomit objects. Their bodies contort. They speak in layered voices, male and female overlapping. And after exorcism, some victims remember everything. Every vile word, every moment of being trapped inside their own body, screaming silently. This is not about religion. It is about spiritual reality. Martin exposes that possession happens because humans invite it, through pride, through experimenting with the occult, and through believing they are too smart to be deceived. The book reveals that witchcraft is not just spells and potions. It is any attempt to gain power, knowledge, or control through non-divine means. And once you open that door, demons do not knock. Because in Hostage to the Devil, freedom is not guaranteed, and some exorcists do not survive. An Exorcist tells his story by Father Gabriele Amorth. He performed over 70,000 exorcisms. He saw demons manifest in screaming teenagers, possessed priests, and even a man who levitated. And he says most of the church does not believe him. In An Exorcist Tells His Story by Father Gabriele Amorth, the chief exorcist of Rome pulls back the curtain on a war most Christians ignore, and warns that ignoring it is exactly how the demons win. Published in 1999, this is a first-hand account by the Vatican's most famous exorcist. Father Amorth served for decades, trained by Father Candido Amantini, and became the go-to priest for demonic cases the church could not explain. He wrote this book not for entertainment, but as a manual, because he believed the modern church had abandoned spiritual warfare. Amorth describes 3 categories of demonic activity: possession, full control. The person loses autonomy, may speak languages they do not know, and hates holy objects. Obsession, persistent tormenting thoughts, often mistaken for mental illness. And oppression, external attacks through curses, hexes, or occult involvement. He recounts cases of people cursed by witches, suffering unexplained illnesses that doctors cannot diagnose. After exorcism, they are healed instantly. He describes a woman who vomited nails during exorcism and a man who spoke fluent Latin despite never learning it. Amorth also reveals that demons are terrified of confession, more so than exorcism, because confession involves repentance. Exorcism is forced expulsion. Confession is willing submission to God, and that enrages Satan more than anything. Amorth does not romanticize possession. He describes physical violence, possessed individuals attacking priests, furniture flying across rooms, and victims speaking in voices that echo like multiple people. He also warns about entry points: Ouija boards, tarot cards, Reiki, yoga. Even cursing opens spiritual doors. He writes that foul language invites foul spirits. The most chilling revelation is that demons suffer more during exorcism than they do in hell, because in exorcism they are forced to confess Christ's authority. In hell, they do not have to. This is not about medieval superstition. It is about a spiritual reality the modern world refuses to acknowledge. Amorth exposes how psychology and medicine fail to explain possession because they deny the existence of demons. The book is a rebuke to a church that stopped training exorcists, and a warning to a world that treats witchcraft as entertainment. Because every time someone plays with a Ouija board, Amorth says, demons take note. Because in Father Amorth's experience, the scariest exorcisms are not the loud ones. They are the ones where no one believes the victim is possessed at all. Piercing the Darkness by Frank Peretti. She's running from a murder charge. A lawsuit is destroying a Christian school. And in the invisible realm, angels and demons are locked in combat where every prayer shifts the battle. Welcome back to Ashton. The war isn't over. In Piercing the Darkness by Frank Peretti, the sequel to This Present Darkness, spiritual warfare escalates. This time, the demons aren't targeting a town. They're targeting children. Published in 1989, Peretti returned to the fictional world of angelic and demonic warfare, but with higher stakes. This time, the battlefield is a Christian school in Bacon's Corner, a small community under attack by a lawsuit claiming the school abuses children. Behind the legal battle, demons manipulate curriculum, child services, and public opinion. The battlefield is a school. Sally Beth Rowe is on the run. She's wanted for attempted murder, but she's innocent. She's also fleeing her past, a dark history involving occult rituals and New Age philosophy that nearly destroyed her. Meanwhile, Tom Harris runs a Christian school under siege. Parents are pulling their kids. A lawsuit claims the school psychologically harms children by teaching biblical values. The legal team behind the lawsuit is funded by a massive New Age organization. In the spiritual realm, demons named Destroyer and Deceiver command legions. They whisper lies into judges' ears. They plant thoughts in jurors. They manipulate witnesses. But the angels, Tal and his warriors, fight back. Every time believers pray, the angels surge forward. Swords ignite. Demons scream and flee. The climax merges Sally's story with Tom's. Her testimony exposes the conspiracy. The lawsuit collapses. But not before Sally confronts her past and realizes that the New Age movement she once trusted was demonically designed to deceive. The demons in this book are more aggressive than the first. They don't just whisper, they attack. One scene describes a demon literally riding on a woman's back, claws digging into her shoulders, whispering fear into her mind. She thinks it's anxiety. It's oppression. Peretti also exposes how public schools are used as battlegrounds. Curriculum that teaches moral relativism. Programs that encourage children to question parental authority. Peretti frames it as demonic strategy. Separate children from faith, and you destroy the next generation. This isn't about religious paranoia. It's about cultural warfare disguised as progress. Peretti warns that when institutions replace God with self, they've been infiltrated. The book reveals that witchcraft doesn't need covens. It needs legislation, policies, education systems that normalize rebellion against divine authority. Piercing the darkness is a call to prayer. Because in Peretti's world, every spiritual battle is won or lost based on whether believers are interceding. Because in Bacon's Corner, the demons didn't lose because they were weak. They lost because someone prayed. Confronting Jezebel by Steve Sampson. She never screams. She manipulates. She never demands. She seduces. And by the time you realize what's happening, your church, your marriage, or your ministry has been destroyed. Meet the Jezebel spirit. She is already in your life. In Confronting Jezebel, Discerning and Defeating the Spirit of Control, by Steve Sampson, the most dangerous demon is not the one you see. It is the one controlling you through someone you trust. Control often looks normal. Published in the early 2000s by a pastor and spiritual warfare teacher, the book exposes the Jezebel spirit as a demonic principality rooted in manipulation, control, and rebellion. Sampson analyzes the biblical Queen Jezebel, who seduced King Ahab and turned Israel toward idolatry, and connects her tactics to modern spiritual deception. Sampson does not tell a linear story. He dissects a pattern. The Jezebel spirit operates through people, often in positions of influence. Pastors' wives, worship leaders, board members. They do not challenge authority openly. They undermine it. They ask innocent questions that plant doubt. They offer help that creates dependence. They frame rebellion as concern. Sampson describes churches torn apart by individuals who claim to be prophetic, but were actually divisive. Marriages destroyed by spouses who used guilt, shame, and emotional manipulation to control. He outlines 14 characteristics, such as self-pity, false humility, claiming persecution, seduction, using spiritual language to gain credibility, and targeting leaders to make them weak. The Jezebel spirit does not want your worship. It wants your submission. It achieves this through witchcraft-level control disguised as love. What makes this terrifying is how normal it sounds. The Jezebel spirit does not announce itself. It works through passive aggression, silent treatments, emotional blackmail. Sampson explains how individuals under this influence create chaos while positioning themselves as victims. They cry easily, they claim to be misunderstood, and when confronted, they accuse their accusers. It is gaslighting at a demonic level. This is not about blaming women. The Jezebel spirit operates through men too. It is about one thing: control. The book reveals that witchcraft does not need spells when it has emotional manipulation. The deeper message is simple. If you feel constantly guilty, constantly anxious, constantly walking on eggshells around someone, you might be dealing with Jezebel. The only way to break free is confrontation, boundaries, and refusing to be spiritually bullied. Because in confronting Jezebel, the scariest realization is not that the spirit exists, it is that you have been obeying it for years. Unmasking the Jezebel Spirit by John Paul Jackson. What if the person sabotaging your ministry prayed the loudest? What if the voice dividing your church spoke in tongues? What if witchcraft did not look like a witch, but like a saint? In Unmasking the Jezebel Spirit by John Paul Jackson, prophetic insight meets brutal honesty. The result is a guide to identifying and dismantling one of the church's most destructive forces. Published around 2002 by the founder of Streams Ministries International, this book combines biblical analysis with Jackson's decades of ministry experience. He witnessed firsthand how the Jezebel spirit infiltrates churches, destroys leaders, and masquerades as spirituality. Jackson wrote this not as theory, but as a survival manual for pastors under siege. Jackson structures the book around biblical patterns. He analyzes Queen Jezebel's alliance with Ahab, showing how she did not overthrow him. She seduced him, made him weak, and used his authority to push her agenda. Then he examines Revelation 2, verse 20, where Jesus rebukes the church in Thyatira for tolerating that woman Jezebel who calls herself a prophet. Jackson argues that this spirit still operates today. It claims prophetic gifting, it offers wisdom, but its fruit is division. He outlines how Jezebel targets pastors specifically, exploiting their insecurities, their desire for peace, and their fear of confrontation. The spirit creates crisis, then positions itself as the solution. Jackson provides case studies of churches where a single individual controlled the worship team, the prayer ministry, and the pastor's schedule. Leaders who felt powerless in their own pulpit. The solution is confrontation. Jackson emphasizes that the Jezebel spirit cannot survive direct biblical authority. It thrives in ambiguity. It dies in light. Jackson describes how the Jezebel spirit uses seduction in multiple forms: sexual temptation, emotional dependency, financial control. He recounts stories of pastors who had affairs with women operating under the spirit, only to realize later they had been targeted. He also warns that Jezebel partners with an Ahab spirit, weak men who enable control because they fear conflict. The book exposes how entire ministries collapse not from external attacks, but from internal compromise. This is not just a church problem, it is a spiritual reality. Jackson reveals that the Jezebel spirit is witchcraft in religious clothing. It manipulates, it dominates, and it replaces God's authority with human will. The genius of the book is its practical application. Jackson does not just expose the problem. He teaches how to dismantle it through prayer, boundaries, and refusing to negotiate with deception. Because in unmasking the Jezebel spirit, the most dangerous enemy is not the one at the gate. It is the one in the pulpit.